You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. This is season number 2. It's episode 94. The Cubs leave Nashville empty-handed. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and most importantly, subscribe to the podcast. Follow us on the socials, Fly W670 on Twitter, Instagram. Of course, we're on Facebook, and you can email us at flythew670@gmail.com. Crawly, the headline says Cubs leave Nashville empty-handed, but most teams left Nashville empty-handed.
Yeah, I got to tell you, I saw that Ken Rosenthal wrote a brilliant article about how baseball's got to do something. I mean, you cannot literally have a hotel full of reporters and nothing happen for a whole 3 or 4 days. It's ridiculous. Got to start putting some timelines on this. Make it fun for the fans, because this was awful.
Make a deadline. Make it a winter meeting deadline almost.
Right, or do something. You got to do something. This was just a dud.
Well, plus they said that there was a lot of off-site things going on, like people weren't doing the typical in the lobbies, in a suite, in a thing. Everybody was doing stuff away from where the meetings were being held.
It was it was literally just boring for everybody that was there, and it was boring for the fans at a time when you're trying to drum up interest. So we'll see what happens.
So what do you think? I mean, let's play. Let's be the commissioner. How would you fix it? I mean, what kind of a deadline do you think you could put in there?
I would like to see most of these deals done at some point in time by New Year's. That way you got your team set for the fan festival.
Would there be a gathering though then, or you put that out so there wouldn't be a winter meetings per se?
You could still have the winter meeting, but right now, I mean, you can still have guys signing in March. You know what I mean? For the most part.
Well, again, if Shohei Ohtani decides what he wants to do, I think you'd see a lot more things happen. And the more and more like he doesn't do anything, some of this, Crawly, Kenny Rosenthal can say, shame on baseball. How about shame on Shohei Ohtani? Okay. The last time Shohei Ohtani and Mike Trout won anything was the 4th of never. Right? What exactly have they done? What have those two done? And what exactly are you paying $600 million for? If he can't pitch, why in the world would you pay him $600 million? You're paying him that because you're buying a number 2 starter at worst case scenario and the third batter in your lineup. Okay, that's worth $600 million. But next year he's not pitching and he may never pitch again. So what in the wide world of sports is so special about Shohei Ohtani? Give me a break.
I think what it comes down to is he is a globally recognized figure, right? And so you don't get these guys very often that transcend the game. And that's really what you're paying for. Of course, you're paying for a guy that's going to slug like crazy. If he can pitch, all the better.
If he never pitches again, Crawly, then he's not – I'm not saying he's just a guy. But he's one of a handful of guys then. He's not a unicorn anymore. If he can't pitch ever again, he's nothing out of the ordinary. He's just a guy.
Right. And so, I mean, things were held up by the decision or lack of decision. And, who knows? Maybe, we can't even get what his dog's name is. So
exactly. I mean, what is with all the secrecy and all the goofiness and all the weirdness? I mean, I'll say I was more upset about it than you were. You attend it much more than I do. We'll go back to the last Cubs convention, right? Who didn't show up? Who wasn't there last year? I mean, there's a handful of people. Okay. Yeah. The Cubs' biggest pickup, we didn't know what it was going to be. We didn't know what Bellinger was going to be. The biggest pickup was Stroman. He didn't show up. People were upset. You think Shohei Ohtani is going to show up to Cubs Con? No chance. No shot.
Well, Dustin, we did actually get a little bit of news after the winter meetings was over and everyone was packing their bags and going home. The Yankees took the first premium name off the board when they traded to get Juan Soto from San Diego. Along with Soto, the Yankees are going to get center fielder Trent Grisham. And so they're saying that they're going to put Aaron Judge in center. And, so that's going to be crazy.
That'll be interesting to watch.
Dustin, I got to tell you, man, the return.
5 guys. 5 for 2.
Right. But these are, Michael King is a pretty good reliever turned starter who had a good second half of the season. He's a guy that's going to be interesting. But then after that, you got swingman Johnny Brito, top pitching prospect Drew Thorpe, reliever Randy Vasquez, and a 33-year-old catcher, right? Kyle Higashioka. And so, I don't see, one really, really good prospect, one major league ready pitcher right now, a reliever, and a 33-year-old catcher. And you can't, the Cubs didn't have anything to beat that.
But would you want the Cubs to? Here's the thing: would you want the Cubs to beat that? Well, I'm saying you, and how much you have to pay Soto this year?
33 million.
Okay, and then you got to really pay him, right? And then you got to really pay him, or he walks. So let me put it to you this way, Dustin. Right now, the Cubs have a glut of outfielders. They have he
pitching.
Didn't want 400. He didn't want 400 million. That wasn't good enough, and that was a couple years ago.
But when we're talking about this, and Michael Cerami brought it up when we had him on interviewing from Bleacher Nation, is that if that was all it took to get him, I would have tried to top that deal. You're going to pay the 33 million. Don't worry about that. But now you have a grace period to see, is this guy really worth $400-500 million? But you have him, and you have exclusive rights to him. What if all of a sudden you find out that maybe there's personality things you don't like about him? What if you find out he doesn't get along well with the team? Wouldn't you rather know that now than committing $500 million?
Well, I'm not, again, Crawly, if you're listening, I'm not ready to commit $500 million either.
Well,
okay? Because again, what has Shohei Ohtani it's not bad. This is not basketball, Crawly. This is Major League Baseball. This is a team sport. One guy, one individual cannot win the World Series. It takes a couple of guys at the very least. It is not an individualized sport hidden in a team sport like the NBA can be sometimes.
But so you're talking
how about this? Is there a way to do it? Could we here's a potential guess or a homework assignment. Maybe either one of us can text with him or we can get him on the show. What would have been a comp? What would have been a comp from the Cubs farm system? Name wise, you know what I mean? Like give me the names, because then you can have a real conversation, right?
I'm just telling you, I think that there's an offer the Cubs could have beat. It wouldn't have absolutely decimated the farm system, and then you have a year of you really getting to see who Juan Soto is.
But they also don't want him to play defense. They were buying Juan Soto to be the DH. I mean, on this team, right? I mean, if they needed to give a guy a day off, but he's not a defender, and the Cubs love the defense.
He's a fine defender. He's not. I mean, I wouldn't say he's any worse than.
He's not going to win a Gold Glove.
He may be slightly less good slightly less skilled than Ian Happ, but I don't think he's like awful. He's not Kyle Schwarber defense. When you're talking about Kyle Schwarber, you know what I mean? So I would say.
I hear you. I'm just saying. I mean, there's just. Everybody's got warts, and the Cubs have a lot of holes. And I get you and I talked before the show about a comment that Jed Hoyer made, which basically scream at me, Rhys Hopkins is coming to town, right? But if you give me Rhys Hopkins and you give me Glasnow and you give me a much better bullpen or a deeper bullpen, I could live with that. I could live with that.
I don't think Hoskins alone will. I don't know. I think.
And who's paying Bellinger now? By the way, the Yankees aren't. Dodgers don't want him. Who's paying for him?
Well, that's what we're going to find out here. But the other signings of note that occurred at the winter meetings, Jeimer Candelario is staying in the NL Central. That option is off the board. He's signing a 3-year, $45 million deal with the Reds.
What do you think of that? I mean, what do you think of that money for him? That seems. I mean, it's affordable. But I don't know. I would rather give Christopher Morel 150 games at third base than give that kind of investment to Candelario myself. So,
when you look at Candelario, he's hit 20 plus home runs for the last 3-4 years. You have a proven talent. With Christopher Morel, I don't know.
Morel hit 20. You don't think Morel hit 20 a year?
I know. What I worry about is if he is made to be one of those guys that you're depending on, his cold streaks, Dustin, can get very,
Yeah,
very
it can get
cold.
icy. You're right.
He can get very icy. And if all of a sudden you got one or two guys struggling plus him struggling, he was nearly unplayable at points last year with how bad he was struggling. But he can obviously, hit the ball very hard and very far. There's no doubt about that. The only other big signing was Eduardo Rodriguez signs a 4-year, $80 million with the D-backs. So starting pitching depth was the Achilles heel for Arizona. Remember, they went with the bullpen game in the World Series.
Yep.
So they put themselves in good shape to make another run.
Now their top 4 looks pretty damn good.
Right. So what about the Cubs? They didn't make any moves, and it was a bizarre couple of days for the organization as rumors swirled around them. Jed Hoyer, along with Toronto's GM, were not at the opening of the winter meetings. We know Toronto met with Ohtani. We know the Dodgers met with Ohtani. We don't know if Jed did or didn't. And once Jed does get in there, we'll talk about this more a little bit later, but he gets into a little confrontation with our buddy Bob Nightingale. And Dustin, I don't know about you, but I don't think we have any clearer picture of the Cubs offseason plan than when the winter meeting started. So maybe Jed is still operating in stealth mode like he did.
Right. Well, he's playing a good game of poker, a good game of possum. The other piece of audio I used this morning was about, hey, sometimes it's a curse when you win the offseason. Sometimes that's a curse. You don't want to have all the big names. Sometimes it doesn't work out, which I found an interesting comment, right? So we'll get to some of that audio and some of those comments along the way, but he's kind of, if he's being honest, he's leaving a little trail of breadcrumbs. He's pulling a little Hansel and Gretel, if you will.
We'll see. Or maybe he's bluffing. We don't know.
We don't know.
We put together a path, though, Dustin, on the last episode for a successful offseason. And if you remember, we took all the people that are, free agents and all the trade people that we've heard in trade rumors and kind of created 3 different tiers of players. And so we said tier 1 free agents, Ohtani, Yamamoto, Snell. Those are all still available. Tier 1 trade targets that we said were the top of the class. Soto is now gone. Cease and Alonso are also on that list. So there's still 5 players available from that first tier. As far as tier 2 free agents, Montgomery, Chapman, and Bellinger. So Jordan Montgomery, Matt Chapman, and Cody Bellinger, and then the tier 2 trade targets, Corbin Burns, Alex Bregman, and Tyler Glasnow. We said tier 3 free agents, Rhys Hoskins, Jorge Soler, and Imanaga, the other pitcher from Japan that's now looking maybe at $100 million. And then the top 3 trade targets would be Bieber, Ha-Sung Kim, and Isaac Paredes from the Rays. And so a lot of those guys are still available. So we want to do a little bit of a temperature check to see how the hot stove is feeling about some of these players. You ready, Dustin?
I'm ready.
All right. Shohei Ohtani, we're going to say cold right now.
Like cold or like ice cold? Or
I would just say cold. I would say cold.
Not even like room temperature?
Maybe room temperature. But this was supposedly what sparked the conversation between Bob Nightingale and Jed Hoyer. For what we heard for a while, it was the Cubs and Dodgers. Cubs and Dodgers is the finalist. Dodgers number 1, Vegas or Cubs number 2. That's still how they had it on the sports books at your friends with Circa Resort and Casino. The Cubs are still at number 2. But Bob Nightingale tweeted this out. The Chicago Cubs' optimism of landing Ohtani has now significantly waned, one high-ranking executive said. He's going to change that in his article to one high-ranking Cubs executive, leaving the LA Dodgers, the Toronto Blue Jays, the Angels, and the San Francisco Giants as the likely finalists. Now, again, no one's 100% sure what happened between Bob and Jed. There were some reports, but John Heyman, when Hoyer was asked about that, he said, we have not been told we are out of the running. We don't talk about free agents, and that's where we're going to leave it. Now, Heyman is going to kind of play the middle ground here. He's going to say the Cubs have not been informed they are out on Ohtani, which is exactly what Jed said. But John continues. He says that doesn't mean report is untrue, but they just haven't heard. The belief is that at least the Dodgers, Jays, Giants, and Angels are in. So I'm going to continue to say cold on Ohtani, Dustin. That's where I'm feeling it running.
Yeah, you're probably right. I mean, it's probably LA, Toronto, Chicago.
Maybe. We know that Dave Roberts spilled the beans, talked about
Well, what are the rules, right? What are the rules?
Right. And we know Toronto met with Ohtani, and Craig Counsell was asked if he met with Ohtani. Craig Counsell had said no. Now, you want to talk about ice cold, Dustin? This is the guy I wanted, and I'm hoping that it doesn't turn out to be Yoshinobu Yamamoto. According to Patrick Mooney and Sahadev Sharma of The Athletic, quote, Yoshinobu Yamamoto has generated so much interest from both the New York teams and other big market franchises that the Cubs are not expected to proceed in these high-stake negotiations. Reports now have Yamamoto's contract looking like 10 years, $300 million. I was disappointed. Aren't we a big market franchise? Why would we be out?
Is it culture? Is it closeness? Is it proximity? Name the Japanese pitcher that's done a lick in the major leagues.
Yu Darvish comes to mind. There's been other ones.
You want Yu Darvish 2.0? Really?
I don't know. I know this guy.
Hold on. No. Hold on. Time. I mean, you want to do Yu Darvish over again?
You asked who was a successsuel Japanese pitcher, and that's what I was telling you.
But
I think that
we already saw that, and
Yoshinobu Yamamoto
he couldn't handle Chicago. He couldn't handle Chicago.
No, he was fine. He was injured the first season, and then he was in the Cy Young Award.
When nobody was
in the Cy Young Award. He came second in Cy Young voting the second season to Trevor Bauer.
When nobody sat in the stands, he did well.
I'll disagree with that one, but Yamamoto, again, 3-time Cy Young Award winner in Japan. I mean, a guy that throws heat and has a lot of great secondary pitches. I just don't understand, Dustin, if they're saying other big market franchises that that it was too much, has generated so much interest. They don't want to.
I'd like them to source it though, like a hype. Who, according to them, according to who did they talk to?
I just according to somebody. If you're talking about local reporters, Patrick Mooney and Sahadev Sharma are two of the best you can get.
Oh no, I don't disagree. Here's the thing, and Crawly, I love to armchair quarterback, but I do, and I've said that I don't want to be a hypocrite. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I am going to give Carter and Jed and Tom the opportunity to do their job. Mm-hmm. I want to see what they do. I want to see how it works out, and then I will criticize or I will applaud. Well, I have always said on this podcast and on the Mully Haugh Show that I did not want them to spend $500 million on one player. Now, mm-hmm. I'm fine. Give me Yamamoto, Reese Hopkins, and somebody else. Okay, I can live with that, right? Like that, I'm in on that. But let's see what they do. I mean, if they get Glasnow and Cody, what if they get Glasnow and Cody Bellinger?
It's interesting. I mean, there's always concerns.
Eventually, you're going to have to pay Glasnow, right?
The concern is, Glasnow again, you would only get him for 1 year, which is what we talked about with Soto.
Really pay him. Right.
I worry about his injury history. That to me is worrisome when you have a pitcher that has a history of arm injuries. That makes me nervous. I've done it with Kerry Wood. I did it with Mark Pryor. I'm just not really looking forward to a guy that I have to worry about, getting injured every single start. I'd rather not go that route. Yamamoto, 25-year-old young guy, and I'm just telling you.
Who's he faced? I mean, who's he throwing against? I mean, where are the great hitters from Japan except for the great Shohei Ohtani? Where are these guys? Where are all the sluggers that he's mowing down? So that's part of this.
All right. Apparently, these other teams don't seem to have a problem with it. The Mets or the Yankees.
Let's see what happens.
Okay.
I mean, how did things go? How would you grade? We'll go to the Mets. Okay. How would you grade year one of their starting pitcher that the Cubs and Cubs fans were interested in? It was okay. It was okay, right? It wasn't great. It's all right.
Yeah, I
Wasn't
thought
it wasn't fantastic. Wasn't knock your socks off.
I thought he
right.
had a really good year on a really bad team.
Right. Yeah.
Is what I would put it at. And so
it was a bunch of shrug your shoulders.
Especially the second half, his numbers really ticked up. So
we'll see.
With the let keep moving on here. We got Tyler Glass now, who is red hot with the Cubs. So I know you're excited. John Heyman and Bruce Levine both have the Cubs very much in on Glass now.
See, and the other thing with him is, Crawly, I don't think you have to give up squat for him. Okay, I wouldn't give up Morel. I wouldn't give up Morel for him.
Well,
I know you got to give up something. I know you got to give up something, but I would not give up Morel. Not for a 1-year rental on a team. And the Cubs are going to eat all that salary, and everybody knows that the Rays don't want to pay him.
I would say on this one, it's tricky because this is what Craig Counsell had to say on the Marquee Network about Christopher Morel, and it kind of raised some eyebrows.
Chris Morel, needs to be in the lineup, and he needs to be on the field, and so that's how we have to, and he's earned that, and so. Look, there are some players that are multi-position players, and that's okay. Mookie Betts has been a very good multi-position player for the Los Angeles Dodgers. Last year for the Cubs, Cody Bellinger was a very good multi-position player. So, I think good players find their ways onto the field. They find their way in the lineup. And I think that's where we're at with Morel, or that's where I'm at with Morel. And he's earned that by the way he's played. It's an exciting young player that offensively continues to get better. Because he doesn't have one position, to me, is not a concern. It's a place that we have some versatility and that we're going to take advantage of that. Chris Morel.
So the interesting thing about that, Christopher Morel has to play. So that was okay. But the question is, where is he going to play? And Dustin, I know we've talked about third a lot. And the funny thing is that with Morel, he was, supposedly the Cubs want him to play first, but the Lead'em leagues the Dominican leagues don't have any connection to the major leagues. And so they've been playing him where they think they need him to be to win, which has been third base the majority of the time. Right. But
what that cut also screamed to me? That was to me. That was a shot at David Ross. That was a shot that the Cubs wanted Christopher Morel out there more. Now, you're right, Crawly. He got icy cold. But that didn't mean that they meaning Jed and Carter, didn't want him out there more often. And maybe that was another thing that the little bit of the rift, if you will, that might have been going on.
I don't know. I mean, why would Jed say he wants him to play first? To me, that's where I'm kind of very confused about, and where.
Well, you could hide him. I mean, you'd rather have a better defender at third than first, right? I mean,
we'll see about him, but it looks like I don't think you have to give Morel up to get Glass now. So that right now seems to be the hottest as far as the Cubs rumors.
And I would not. That honestly, that would be a deal breaker, because I would say, okay, if I really want Glass now that badly, I'll go buy him next year.
Now, Rhys Hoskins, I would say, would be warm right now. Levine's mentioned him as a good fit, pillow contract, high slug, high OBP, a John Maley pupil from when John was with the Phillies. I think that's one that could easily be done by the Cubs and will. But this one kind of popped up recently. One of my friends, Cubby's Hot Stove, put this up there, and there's rumors now about the Cubs. We know that they talked with the Guardians about Shane Bieber. Remember, that was a conversation between the Guardians in Chicago and the Reds in Chicago. But now it looks like the Cubs and Guardians are talking a little bit more, and there may be something bigger cooking. They apparently, the Cubs have been talking to Cleveland about Shane Bieber, but also Emmanuel Claus, who's one of the best relievers in baseball, which would solve your bullpen situation. And Dustin, first baseman Josh Naylor, also, who's a 26-year-old first baseman. He's not a big power guy, 17, 18 home runs, but he's a guy who hits for average. So I guess, if you could somehow have some sort of first DH platoon type situation with Naylor and Rhys Hoskins, Naylor's a much better first baseman and Rhys Hoskins is a much bigger slugger, that might be something there. So to get a closer, a starter, and a first baseman, I don't know what Cleveland would ask for that, but that would be something to really kind of keep your eye on.
Now you want Christopher Morel? Now I can have a conversation about that, right? As one of the people. But that is interesting. Something to keep an eye on, no doubt about it. And Crawly, this is part of the fun. This is part of the fun with all of this. And I know you and I and our listeners are hoping there is a emergency podcast in the near future. We'd all like to know what jersey we would like to see underneath our Christmas tree or part of our Hanukkah celebrations. You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. It's episode number 94 of season 2. Cubs leave Nashville empty-handed. And in this segment, we are going to listen back to some cuts from Bruce Levine on the Mully Haugh Show.
Oh man, Dustin, I was actually driving in the car and I almost had to pull over. I was going so crazy with this interview with how many nuggets Bruce Levine was just dropping there. And so the first part of this clip is the Bob Nightingale versus Jed Hoyer dust up. Here's what Bruce had to say about the situation.
Talked to Bob Nightingale, good friend of mine, good friend of yours in the station, one of the great reporters in the country. Afterwards, after, the tweet by Jesse that, he was scolded. And he was indeed, Hoyer was upset about the fact that Christopher Morel's name was out there being bandied about for Tyler Glasnow of the Tampa Rays. And they have been talking to the Tampa Rays, and Tyler Glasnow has a really good chance of ending up as a Chicago Cub pitcher. But that wasn't the trade. They hadn't talked about Morel. So what Hoyer did was, before he talked to the general media in his session yesterday, he detoured over to Bob, and he told him, according to both Bob and another source, hey, you were wrong on this. We don't like our guy Morel's name being out there when his wasn't mentioned, and I'm letting you know that you're wrong on the story, so you should retract it. As far as the Ohtani stuff goes, according to Bob, there was no conversation at all about Ohtani, and the conversation lasted about 20 seconds. So that is, I viewed it as well. I didn't think it lasted more than that either. But again, was Bob right about the Ohtani part of this, that he has told the Cubs that they are no longer a part of it? Hoyer said that the Cubs have not been told anything of the sort.
So, boy, Dustin, there's a lot there. Number one, it appears that this wasn't a conversation having to do about Bob's tweet about Shohei Ohtani, but more of the matter of that the Cubs were not offering Christopher Morel on the table for Tyler Glasnow. So to me, that really is kind of, telling that it really, when the media kind of went with that, about the getting scolded, it was about, everyone thought it was about the Shohei thing. But according to Bruce, it seems like it was more about Morel for Glasnow. Is that what you picked up on that?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
So interesting to see. Now, one thing that you and I have talked about previously as well, how much is Shohei worth as far as value to a team? And this is what Bruce had said about that.
I was told a net $15 to $20 million a year. Okay. So a lot of them, yeah. Okay. So that sounds like very little compared to some, people saying it's $80 to $100 million a year. And there were some reports like that. But the reality is that a net $15 to $20 million a year is an awful lot. It's an awful lot for the Cubs. Now, that is after all expenses. That is after you write off every major league player on your 40-man rosters, 40% of their contracts, which you are allowed to legally at the end of the year take off of your books. So there is plenty of money there. But I'm glad you brought it up, Mike, because the reality is they're not spending $500 to $600 million on everybody else, because everybody else doesn't happen to be this guy. This guy is a once-in-a-lifetime Michael Jordan type player for the sport, and that is why you're ponying up this amount of money. Sure, everything around Wrigleyville, everything marquee, everything, with our station, everything goes up. the prices go up, the attention span goes up. It becomes worldwide news every day when he plays. So that's why he gets paid. But again, will the Cubs spend money if he doesn't get signed? Yes, they will. Will it be that amount of money? No, but I think they will be approaching somewhere around 240, 250 million, which would be an increase of probably 70 million from last year.
So again, a lot of nuggets in just that little soundbite there.
I love Bruce. I love Bruce. I respect Bruce a ton. But Michael Jordan and Shohei Ohtani in the same breath, I don't know. See, there's this thing, six championships, six.
Yeah, but I think when you're talking
Ohtani,
about you've brought it up. It is a team game, and you can't just take over. One player cannot take over like we saw Jordan do many times back in the days. But I think when he talks about that, Michael Jordan transcended baseball or basketball. I'm sorry. He transcended basketball. And I remember going to South America, and all my relatives in South America, all they cared about was Michael Jordan and asking me about Michael Jordan. Didn't care about anything else.
Levi's and Michael Jordan, right?
They have not brought up basketball once since Michael Jordan retired. And that's the thing about Shohei Ohtani is he is a global entity. And so you are going to see at the Score, they're going to be able to charge more for ad space. At Hotel Zachary, they're going to have a lot more people coming in to fill that out there. It is an event, and $15 to $20 million a year that he brings in per year. And that, again, is a rough estimate. We don't know that, but that really kind of, if you're paying him, what, $30 million a year, $40 million a year, you're kind of almost offsetting it halfway, right? And the other thing he said is what we talked about. We kind of figured out earlier. The Cubs are looking to be roughly at that first tier of the luxury tax, maybe slightly below it, maybe slightly above it. So there's no doubt that the Cubs are going to spend money. It's just, Jed, like I said, playing it close to the vest. Now, this next clip, Dustin, is the one that I tweeted this out at Crawly's Cubs. It went viral, over 100 million views. People were shocked by this one. Let's hear what he has to say.
Well, he does. And they've always said, and it makes sense that you want to bring Bellinger back. But we're hearing, and again, Scott Boras, his agent, is going to talk today at 11 o'clock. And he'll do the Dog and Pony Show with about 150 media people, including myself, standing there. And we're hearing that Bellinger is asking upwards of $300 million right now. So are you going to pay 8 to 10 years, $300 million for Bellinger at age 29? Most people say, yeah, let's do it. Okay. What's going to be the real impact there? Rhys Hoskins from Philadelphia didn't play last year. Power hitting first baseman is another area that they're probably going to go. There have been conversations there. He would fit in nicely. They certainly need a first baseman. Matt Chapman, who played for Toronto, before that Oakland, another free agent. There's a similar theme with all these guys that I've just talked about. They're all Scott Boras players. So it's going to be a Scott Boras winter with the Chicago Cubs and talking about their players. I think Hoskins is realistic. I think a trade for Glasnow is certainly realistic for the Cubs. They are not going to stop trying to build a championship team if they don't get Ohtani.
Cody Bellinger, I know this is Scott Boras, but $300 million. I mean, that is, I almost drove off the road.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of dough. I mean, that's the job of your representative, right? To put you in this high position, but who's paying him? It's not going to be the Yankees. It's not going to, I mean, are the Dodgers going to pay him? Would the Dodgers want him back? I mean, would he want to go back? The other team that hasn't been talked about, I mean, we're talking about the hot and the cold and the close and the not close, the in and the out. You know, a team I have not heard really much about at all? The Giants. And I know the Giants want to make a splash. Who are the Giants in? Maybe that's who's going to pay him. But if you're the Giants or you're the Cubs and you know that these other suitors are out, why would you overpay for him?
I mean, honestly, so you want to have, you want to be somewhere in the ballpark, Dustin. Of course, you're always going to go on the high end if you're the agent, right? But if you're telling me what is the high end for Cody Bellinger, I would put it at $200 million. 6 years, $200 million. That's what I would put on him. And so I have literally no clue where he comes up with $300 million. If you're telling me $100 million over the high end, Dustin, you can put, like I said, to me, 200 would have been high. I think, what is he worth? 120 to 150. 300, Dustin, that's double. That's insane.
It's crazy. It's crazy money. It's like a house. What's the comp? What's the comp here? Right? I mean, who does he think he is? I mean, he's had a great career, but he's just recently bounced back.
3 good years, 2 bad years, 1, okay year.
Right.
1 good year. I'll put a good year. One
good.
Very,
yeah. Hey,
okay.
But listen, I get it. I mean, I understand why he's saying what he's saying. I mean, but
That-
it doesn't mean we have to like it or agree with it.
So Hoskins in there again. We mentioned him before, and Tyler Glass now, and Scott Boras usually makes a lot of money, but I am still going to stick that $300 million for. Again, it just seems way overvalued. We'll see what happens with that.
Yeah, again, that's why this is fun. But yeah, God bless all these guys and God bless these owners of these teams, and all this money is out there. And I guess that's thanks to you and I and all of our great listeners.
I was happy because remember I put Dylan Cease in the tier 1 category as far as trade. Here's what Bruce Levine had to say about the South Side pitcher.
Dylan Cease is going to be the prize of this offseason, and the White Sox are going to cash in big time for him. Is it going to be exciting for White Sox fans knowing they got 4 or 5 young players from another organization for Dylan Cease? No, not right away. But I was told yesterday by a source with the Reds that the White Sox asked for 4 of their top 10 young players in a very good farm system, the Cincinnati Reds, for Cease. And that caused them some pause. They haven't said no yet. They've said no for the time being. This is going on with Atlanta. It's going on with Baltimore. It's going on with the Dodgers. These conversations are holding up a lot of other things happening here at the meetings because everybody wants 2 years of control of Dylan Cease at possibly only $25 million total for the 2 years. So does he fit in with everybody? Absolutely. Is he durable? No doubt about it. He has not missed a start since 2018. Okay. One of the more durable pitchers. Did he have a clunky year last year? Certainly he did, but he still had 216 strikeouts, 6th in the league. So Cease is the jewel for the White Sox to trade right now, and there are an awful lot of teams interested.
Dustin, when you're talking about 4 of the top 10 prospects from the Red system, the Red system's deeper than the Cubs. That, Dustin, blew my mind. That is absolutely just an insane number in my head. And I thought that is what you were going to see with the Juan Soto trade. And that's why, like I tell you, I was so underwhelmed with what the Padres got back. I thought it was going to be something similar to that, like 4 top 10 prospects. And, if that's what Dylan Cease is going to cost, I mean, but the one thing that Bruce talked about that also interests me and which makes me nervous about Glass now is how Cease doesn't miss starts. Did he have a bad year? Yeah, still struck out a ton of guys. And that White Sox team was just awful. Defense,
terrible team, and I understand why he slid the way he did. Listen, the thing about that situation is they don't have to trade him, right? They don't have to. So they might see what the market is now. He comes out, he has a good start, and who knows what they can get for him if he's got 6 or 7 wins under his belt at the All-Star break.
Well, just to give you an idea, if they wanted 4 of the Cubs' top 10 prospects, that would be Pete Crow Armstrong, Cade Horton, Owen Casey, Kevin Alcantara, Ben Brown, Matt Shaw, Moises Ballesteros, Jackson Ferris, James Triantos, and Jordan Wicks. I mean, 4 of those guys being gone would be a big impact. And that's what I thought, like I said, Juan Soto would bring in. So that one is very interesting when you kind of take a look at this. Now, let's hear what Bruce had to say about Tyler Glasnow and Christopher Morel here.
Well, I think he would be, but again, you have to be careful. I mean, if you're going to trade with Tampa and they do happen to ask for Morel, which I wouldn't think it was out of the question, because I know scouts in that organization and I know that they are high in Morel. Nonetheless, if you're going to trade a guy that has the potential to hit 40 to 50 home runs a year, you better have a lot of pop in your lineup before you do it, okay? Who is the 3rd and 4th hitter for the Chicago Cubs this year right now? I'll give you another second or two.
Yeah.
They don't have it. Without Bellinger, okay, they do not have 3rd and 4th hitters. So before you trade the home run and RBI potential of Morel, you better have a Hoskins or a Chapman or a Bellinger signed up. I just don't see him getting traded until they answer some of those questions about who are the people that are going to drive in runs and who are going to provide the slug for the Chicago Cubs in 2024.
Great question. Who is going to provide that slug, Crawly?
Remember, Dustin, we talked about that last season. We were concerned about that, and it turned out Cody Bellinger was a godsend and really helped out that season. But even then, we knew that Ian Happ really isn't a 3. That just is not. It isn't. I'm sorry. And so, yeah, it is concerning that here we are this year. And when I think about Juan Soto and Shohei, that's what I'm kind of got in my head is the Cubs need pop. And those 2 guys would provide the biggest amount of pop out of anybody, not even close, in my opinion. Not even Bellinger's close in that category when you talk about Soto and Ohtani. So those 2 guys are on an island on their own. So it is a good question of what you're going to do. It's just weird to me how Morel, like, they just don't want him at 3rd. And that's where I just kind of keep wondering what they think they know about him, that he can't play it or can't learn it or can't do the footwork or can't, practice beforehand. Last thing from Bruce has to do with Marcus Stroman. We almost forgot about him, right? And the question of why would he opt out of a $20 million for 1-year deal? This is what Bruce had to say about that.
Are you going to tell me the starting pitching market is so deep that he's going to be all the way down there? I still think that Marcus Stroman will get a 1 or 2 year deal, still at about 20 to 25 million, with a couple of mutual options to prove that he's healthy again and can help pitchers. There's not a lot of starting pitching inventory out there, guys. So I think Stroman is still going to get a good deal for himself to move forward. Once you see Cease come off the market, some of these other guys like Burns that might be traded, a couple other guys that might be traded off of teams that have 1 year left before they're free agents. There's not a lot of inventory out there except Yamamoto, who is going to be signed to somebody over the next 3 weeks before his posting time runs out. Hopefully the Cubs are going to be in on.
So as we're kind of looking at that here, that we kind of figured, I think, that Stroman was going to try to get a multi-year deal. And so that would be like 2 years, 40 million with some opt-outs. So Bruce think that's a possibility. And we're watching some mediocre guys getting 10 to $13 million, Dustin. So I don't know if it's maybe Marcus, is smarter than we think on this one.
Yeah, we will see. I mean, I've not heard a thing about him, right?
Not a word.
Not a peep.
No.
Not a peep. But obviously there is the need for pitching everywhere in baseball. So we'll see. But that's somebody that isn't going to, he might end up getting something because somebody gets hurt.
Now, I would honestly sit there and say, Dustin, though, I think the score, everyone knows I'm a score head, but the station's just doing such a great job with the baseball coverage. And that, like I said, that was just one interview on the Mully Haugh Show. So,
all right. I mean, Bruce has been great down there. Morosi was great with Parkins and Spiegel. He did a great job. I always like hearing from Morosi as well.
So just A+ job by the score team, just really keeping everybody interested in baseball and not forgetting that baseball's still happening.
Speaking of the score, Crawly, tomorrow, 5 o'clock, assuming this podcast gets out to everybody tomorrow around lunchtime, Joe Madden, former skipper for the Cubs and the Angels, talking to Parkins and Spiegel at 5 about Shohei Ohtani. You are listening to the Fly the W670 podcast. This is season 2. It's episode 94. Cubs leave Nashville empty-handed. Don't forget to download, review, subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. And let's get into some of those hot stove rumors that we were hearing down at the meetings in Nashville, Tennessee.
Yeah, we had a rare rival trade, Dustin, during the winter meetings that the Red Sox traded Alex Verdugo to the Yankees for pitchers Richard Fitz, Greg Weissert, and Nicholas Judas. So kind of surprising. The White Sox signed Eric Fedde to a 2-year, $15 million contract. That
seems like a smart signing, though, like for the Sox, right?
Yeah, not bad at all.
Guy. Let's see what he does. Might take a while for the league to catch up to him.
And maybe flip him.
Right.
Keep getting prospects. Nick Senzel signed a 1-year, $2 million contract with the Nationals. And how about former Cubs? You had Victor Caratini signing a 2-year, $12 million contract with the Astros. So he's going to be down there with Martin Maldonado, another former Cubs catcher. But 2 years, good on Victor. And I'm glad he is out of the NL Central because he just liked to torture his old team, much like Eloy Jimenez.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, former Cubs closer Craig Kimbrell signed a 1-year, $13 million contract with the Orioles. On a smaller note, but a happy note, I guess, for me personally, the Cubs re-signed Ethan Roberts to a minor league contract. Remember, he had the Tommy John surgery, and the Cubs non-tendered him in November, so he could have signed with anybody. He did re-sign with the Cubs, so some good news there. The MLB had their second draft lottery on Tuesday, and the big winner was the Cleveland Guardians, who walked away with the number 1 pick for the first time in team history. The Cubs are going to be selecting 14th in the draft. So if everything would have been done as it was previous, the Cubs would have been 17th. So they jumped up like 3 spots. But the bad news for the Cubs fans is what happened with the Cincinnati Reds, who, in my opinion, were the real winners of the draft. The Reds only had a 0.9% chance of winning, and they ended up making the largest jump from where they picked if the draft was based solely on lottery odds, number 13. They went all the way, Dustin, to number 2. A huge jump. And for a team like the Reds that are have such a farm system, that to me is just unbelievable. So not really happy about that. Some other basic news here. The Rule 5 draft happened on Wednesday, and the Cubs did not make a selection in the major league portion of the round. So they didn't want to add anyone to the 40-man roster. In round 1 of the minor league phase, the Cubs selected Hayden Cantrell from the Giants. That was the only player they selected in 5 rounds of the minor league Rule 5 draft. The Cubs lost some minor leaguers. D-backs took Andy Weber, second baseman for the Smokies. The Reds took shortstop Levi Jordan, also from the Smokies. And then in consecutive picks, the Cubs lost pitchers Adam Lasky and Sheldon Reed from the South Bend Cubs. Those are a couple guys that were in the Arizona Fall League, but the Cubs decided not to protect them. So that's where it went on that. I wanted to give a little bit of a congratulations here. We were talking a little bit about the Ford Frick Award winner, and that is going to be Joe Castiglione, 41 years, Dustin, with the Boston Red Sox. So pretty cool.
About time. He's been a good announcer as a person who likes to gather audio from baseball games and other sporting events. Joe's the goods.
Yes, sir. And finally, the Cubs announced another concert for the summer. Dustin, I saw some funny tweets about this. Boom. Def Leppard, Journey, and the Steve Miller Band, July 15th on Wrigley Field. Kind of some older guys there, but that is the second concert on the docket. The Cubs already have Green Day, Smashing Pumpkins, and Rancid coming to the park. So that is
now. Are you going to both of these? Are these both on your list? Check, or no?
I already have tickets for the Green Day Smashing Pumpkins and Rancid. I'm not going to miss that. I've seen Green Day at Wrigley. They are a blast. So if anybody, any music fans out there are interested, that's going to be a good one. And I'm thinking about this one, Def Leppard, Journey, Steve Miller. Def Leppard's still pretty good. Journey. And
it's
then
got like the Alpine. This has got like Alpine Valley written all over it more than Wrigley Field, right? Or even like the Steve Miller band, like out at Ravinia, would be really cool. I can't believe Journey is allowed at Wrigley Field. Don't you associate Journey with the White Sox?
Yeah, Don't Stop Believing.
Right? Don't you?
2005.
So now like I wouldn't mind like a greatest hits, but I got to tell you, like you could have just as good of a time. Maybe I won't give away my little secret, but it's all right. It's okay, but you'd have to tell me how much I got to pay for that ticket.
It's Monday night, which I thought was okay. Who doesn't?
That's a killer. I mean, like a Thursday, I'll scrape it up, but a Monday that just kills my whole week.
I'm very curious to see what happens, and I may be somebody that's scouring on the secondary market or just going down day of and seeing what I could get, and if I can't, going to Lucky Doors, right, literally 15 feet from the ballpark, and just having some good beers and listening to music on the patio. That's kind of my plan.
Right. Yeah. All right, Crawly, that is a wrap. Don't forget to listen, download, review, and subscribe to the Fly the W podcast. Follow the socials. Follow on Facebook. Follow us on Instagram. Of course, you can email Crawly and I, flythew670gmail.com. And you can watch us. That's right, YouTube, by subscribing to the 670 The Score YouTube channel. Don't forget the old skippers, Joe Madden, tomorrow, Park and Spiegel, 5 o'clock Friday. If you miss it live, you can always go back on that Odyssey app and catch the rewind.
I saw Joe at Club 400. He is absolutely brilliant, and I can't wait to hear what his insights are. Hopefully we'll find out what kind of hitter he is, if the Cubs have a chance to sign him, and what the name of his dog is. Go Cubs! Hey guys, it's Crawly. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more content like this. If you want to see more of our videos, be sure to check out our playlist and let us know what you think in the comments below. Also, don't forget to follow us on social media to stay up to date with our latest episodes. Links are in the description. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Go Cubs!